best practices for e-commerce retailers to manage small parcel deliveries. Topic of my conversation today with Rob Glover. He is Vice President of Sales with OSM Worldwide. Hi, Rob.
Morning, Bob.
Good to see you. Thanks for being with me. So we're hearing a lot these days about multi-carrier strategies, about diversification that shippers are seeking. Is that a good thing? What are the benefits of that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, as we kind of look around the industry today, being involved in a multi-carrier shipping arrangement with your carriers is very important. There's so many new options available today. Lots of new entrants into the delivery market. Utilizing a multi-carrier strategy is a best way for you as a e-commerce shipper to be able to really focus themselves on trying to balance costs with speed of delivery, and also maintaining the customer's expectation for how would they like that delivery to be made to them. A lot of companies today are using that multi-carrier strategy to effectively, obviously they're trying to grow their business. Delivery and the options that you give your customers for the way that they can receive the package are becoming more numerous. So as that happens, using a multi-carrier strategy to make sure that you're providing that package to the customer the right way, with the right speed, and certainly at the right cost. So using a multi-carrier strategy can help a shipper, an e-commerce shipper, be able to look at the options available and balance out that delivery cost versus the speed, as well as the expectation that the customer has for the way they'd like to get that package.
What has happened, Rob? Why all of a sudden are we seeing all these options, and what are the options? Are the regional carriers, I assume, are coming up? Is it a function of the pandemic coming out of that suddenly all these new entities popped up? Because, as you say, years ago, you just didn't have those choices. So what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, I think, it was definitely a part of it. It kind of like supercharged the industry a little bit. Just because there was probably a couple years worth of natural growth in the e-commerce space that was kind of jammed into a short window of time when people didn't want to leave their homes or couldn't leave their homes. Right. But now that we kind of recovered from that, we're starting to balance that back out. The options that were available, that became available to consumers, now they're starting to become, I'll call it fully baked networks. And that demand for those services has not really fallen off. It's maintained itself. I think we just supercharged the industry a little bit for a couple years there, but we were on a nice trajectory as an industry before the pandemic. Had an accelerated growth for a couple years, but now I think we're starting to see that all of those demands on the delivery market for those couple of years are now starting to, I'll call it, materialize a little bit more. And we still have a nice growth trajectory. So there's a lot of interest. Certainly big companies like Amazon investing in, continuing to build delivery networks means that there's a lot of, opportunity in this space. There's a lot of interest in this space. So I think that's kind of why we're continuing to see the multi-carrier environment evolve.
And as you say, there are clearly benefits in adopting a multi-carrier strategy, but at the same time, don't you want to have a certain amount of loyalty to particular carriers to get better deals? To be like the shipper of choice of these carriers if you give them a certain amount of your business. How do you balance the need for that plus the importance of having a multi-carrier strategy?
Yeah, I think when you look at the marketplace today, most of those new entrants to the market and the carriers, I feel like the emphasis is less on bundling everything with that one carrier to show that maybe your loyalty that you're referring to. Breaking things down and really giving the carriers what they know that they do best and they can do most cost effectively is actually a demand that the carriers are trying to encourage as well. Yeah. They're trying to push people to say, listen, maybe I'm not your best carrier for all of your packages, but I can do these really, really well. That's part of it. And I also think that, everybody can't do everything in the delivery market. I think that's why there's a lot of these new emerging entrants as well. The demands of the different service levels. Certain carriers are really good at, I'll call it a national footprint. Some are more in a regional footprint. But then we're also looking at some carriers are only focused on very hyper-local areas. So maybe only one city or a handful of cities. So the demands that are available, or I should say the options that are available are really creating different demands in different areas where, if you're trying to meet the needs of each one of your customers, it may require you to really look at multiple carriers to be able to fulfill that.
I'm guessing that a multi-carrier strategy is especially attractive during peak season, when the more established carriers have a tendency to put a cap on the amount of your business that they'll even take. So it becomes super important to have others to go to.
Right. Sure. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And on that line is there's definitely a lot of considerations to make using multi-carrier strategies when you're trying to balance your volumes.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen as many caps on volume as much this last year, last peak season, and going into this peak season. But the cost that you may pay, there may be some demand surcharges that are applied to your packages. So trying to balance the cost with using multiple carriers to kind of keep your volumes in I'll call it a normal range, will be a challenge for some companies.
Well, so tell me more about a strategy as to how you do control costs, because you have all these accessorials, you have, multi-carrier strategy might end up costing you more if you don't have the loyalty. I don't know how it works, but what are some tips for doing that?
Yeah, trying to control costs. I always encourage customers when we talk to people who are interested in trying to control their costs. There's a lot of different categories to consider. Some companies do certain things very well that help them control costs. And some people struggle with the multitude of options that really can impact the cost that you're paying for a shipment. A couple things that I think usually will amount to some success for shippers to consider. One is the first one is really the packaging itself. You see a lot of different options for people who they don't fit the packaging to the actual item that they're shipping,
Mm-hmm.
which can cause more cost there. It can be dimensionally too large, or they can put either too much or too little fillers in those packages, so they can cause a dimensional situation to happen. Or if you don't put enough, you can have damages, so your reship rates can go up, which impact your costs. So I think looking at your packaging and making sure that you're using an effective package to keep your parcel itself as small as possible, but also protect the contents as best as possible. That's one way to really look at helping you maintain your costs, because carriers today, they've instituted a lot of different surcharges that are revolving around the size of the box. If it's too large or if it's too long, there can be some hefty surcharges that can play in.
Yeah.
The second thing really is, I think when you're trying to help control cost, is focusing your time in that shipping area on looking at what contracts are you using with different carriers to make sure that, like we mentioned before, that you're giving the right packages to the right carriers that want those. Example being, some carriers are really good at, I'll call it large, maybe hand delivery type shipments, whereas if you gave that to a national carrier, they might have a lot of extra surcharges or maybe even delay services. So trying to funnel the right types of packages to the right carriers will also help you keep your costs down.
But these are complex decisions, Rob. Where does business intelligence come in as an aid to helping to make these decisions? Is it important these days?
Well, certainly it is. I think the evolution of data in the shipping environment is it's on a laser focused course. I think the thing that really, when it comes to business intelligence, there's a lot of systems that companies are using now to collect information about the order, the person that's ordering it. Once the order hits your OMS or your warehouse management system to flow through to the pick, pack, fulfillment, there's data involved there. Once you obviously get to the end of the process when you're shipping, there's more data that's being collected about the actual package and how it's been prepared for shipment. So there's all these systems in the enterprise today that is collecting information, and people and companies that are embracing the ability to take that information, use it through some business intelligence type processes to be able to make an informed, good decision is becoming very important.
Yeah.
When I look at customers today and I see some of the ones that are doing it really well, you can see that the carriers appreciate the customer that brings them good information about what they're shipping. That way, in return, the carrier can give that customer, a much more precise rate for their services, because you're not unknown things that you don't know. So, I think that as information becomes available in the enterprise, as it's being collected, sharing that information with carriers and then utilizing the information in the actual decision of who you're going to use and what's the best way to get that package delivered is becoming very important.
Rob, thank you so much for your insights into this issue of how e-commerce retailers can manage their small parcel deliveries so much better these days. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you for a moment to give us a little bit of information about OSM Worldwide. Where do you fit into the picture today?
Yeah, thanks. It's great being here. OSM is we're one of the largest workshare partners of the United States Post Office. So we work everything that would flow through our network would be ultimately delivered by the USPS out to the final mile to the consumer. But we work with e-tail brands, folks that are in the 3PL business to really help them, give them that option to say, how can we help you with a economical but yet expedited delivery? So everything that OSM delivers, we work to try to deliver all the parcels in our network in a 2 to 5 day time frame around the country. So by the time we pick it up and the package is delivered to the consumer, usually in an expedited 2 to 5 day window. So we focus on small parcels. So if you think about what your mailman would be comfortable delivering to your home, those are the types of parcels that OSM really focuses on.
Thanks again, Rob. I really appreciate you being with me today. Thanks so much.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
I've been speaking with Rob Glover of OSM Worldwide. Thank you very much for watching.